This meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals is hereby called to order. This board was established pursuant to Section 519.13 of the Ohio Revised Code by the Anderson Township trustees to provide administrative relief to any person or entity adversely affected by the Anderson Township zoning resolution. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Johnson. Here. Mr. Shekels.
Here.
Mr. Sion.
Here.
Mr. Halpin.
Present.
Mr. Haber.
Here. Thank you for coming to this meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals. Please be aware that this meeting is audio and video taped and may be carried live on television. First, let me take an opportunity to outline our procedures. We've got 4 cases tonight, and this is what we will do with each case as we progress through the evening. A summary of the appeal will be presented by our staff. Then the appellant will be able to present its case. The board members may ask questions of the appellant. After that, all persons in support of the appeal will be permitted to testify one at a time after being recognized by the chair. When those persons supporting the appeal are finished, those opposed to the appeal will then be permitted to testify and or ask questions of the board after being recognized. All persons wishing to testify, whether for and against an appeal, may only do so after being sworn in. So at this portion right now, what I would like to do is that any persons who may give testimony this evening, please stand and raise your right hand and swear. So anybody who is going to provide testimony tonight, if you would please stand, raise your right hand, and swear or affirm, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Going back to our procedures, all persons wishing to testify, whether for and against, may only do so after being sworn in. When testifying, each person must come forward to the podium, and after being recognized, speak into the microphone, state your name, address, and any affiliation to this case. All persons testifying will be limited to 4 minutes unless a board member requests additional time. All testimony is given to the board only. No comments, questions are to be directed to the appellant or anyone else in the audience. The board will only hear new, non-repetitive evidence or questions. Should someone wish to show support of previous testimony, they may do so by following the testimony procedures and stating their support of previous testimony. Once we get through that public testimony portion of each case, the board will go into a session where we will deliberate and talk about the case amongst ourselves. At that point, there is no further public testimony that will be provided unless so requested by a member of the board. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
There are no changes.
No changes unless there is an objection from the board. The agenda is approved by unanimous consent. Item number 2, approval of the minutes of March 2nd, 2023. Do I hear a motion to approve? Were there any changes? A motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion to approve the minutes and a second. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Johnson.
Abstain.
Mr. Shekels.
Yay.
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin.
Aye.
Mr. Haber.
Aye. Thank you. Item number 3 is consideration of case 9-2023 BZA, a variance request to allow a 28 by 28 accessory structure located in the front yard at 7080 Grantham Way, submitted by Forest Hills School District. And I would request at this point that the staff would present their report.
think we have a couple of board members that may need to recuse themselves.
I have to recuse myself. I know somebody that's presenting.
Okay.
I do too.
Okay.
If you guys will go over here in this side conference room, please.
Thank you. So we still have a quorum?
We still have a quorum with three.
Right, we still have a
Okay.
quorum. It does take all three votes to make a decision.
Okay. Thank you. So are we ready for staff?
Okay, yes, we're ready for staff.
Thank you.
So, as Mr. Chairman stated, this location is at 7080 Grantham Way. The zoning is B2 residence, which is single family. The request, because this is a school, it's a two-part request. All schools are conditional uses in single-family zoning districts, so it's a conditional use, and then a variance request for an accessory structure size 28 by 28 to be located in the front yard, where accessory structures are only permitted in the rear yard of properties. Again, the 28 by 28 is considered structure is a hip canopy or a shade structure that's proposed over the. They have outdoor picnic areas in the circle of their driveway, and this is to provide shade for those that are using those structures. The history of the school, it was built in 1973, and the most recent case was 11/2015. This was an addition which was approved. We have had two similar cases, most recently one in November, and well, there was one at Ayers Elementary, and then also that was at Forest. There was a similar request. So this is the property map. Sherwood Elementary is in Sherwood Forest subdivision. This is an aerial of the property. The proposed structure is in this general area, the circle of their drop-off area. The topography map, there is a swale in this particular area, but for the most part it's fairly flat. And this is just a surrounding map. It is completely surrounded by single-family zoning and single-family uses ranging from B2 to B to C. This is a site photo of the area that is proposed to be covered where these picnic tables are. Just a close-up view. This is an elevation drawing of the canopy or the shade structure. So there are findings for conditional uses as well as findings for the variance request. So we'll first cover the findings for conditional uses, and again, these are for schools and accessory uses to those schools. They must meet the following criteria. H, the vehicular use area, and that is not to be modified, so that is compliant. Minimize impact of potential nuisances. Staff felt that that was compliant, that this would not generate any additional noise or activity than would generally be associated with the school. O, landscaping shall be installed in accordance for a border buffer or boundary buffer, and again, that is already existing and not proposed to be changed. P, signage, no new signage is proposed, and then S refers to lighting, and no additional lighting is proposed. Article 2.12 D8A are the standards for a conditional use, spirit, and intent. Staff was of the opinion that this would be used for, it would comply with the spirit and intent of the zoning and the district purposes. It meets the conditional use standards already for the elementary school, and it will be used for academic purposes throughout the school day, primarily by students and teachers. Staff was of the opinion it would have no adverse effect on the surrounding neighborhood. It would not affect public services. No changes are proposed to the driveway. It's in the middle of the driveway area. And then staff felt that it was consistent with adopted plans. In our comprehensive plan, we identified the quality of life chapter as well as other areas in the comprehensive plan. As far as variance findings, again, it is a smaller structure. It's not a large structure. It blends in with the school. The existing buffer around the school would minimize the visibility to surrounding properties. So staff was of the opinion that the variance should be granted. These are the standards both for a conditional use as well as a variance. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
None.
Okay. If you have no questions, we invite the appellant or the appellant's representative to come to the podium, identify yourself, your address, and to provide any additional information regarding the conditional use and variance requests. Please.
Hi, my name is Catherine Halpin, and I'm Sherwood Elementary's PTO president, and my personal address is 7024 Moorfield Drive. I just wanted to add that the PTO has worked very hard, and we worked very clear with our walkathon goal that this would be the next step. We surveyed students and teachers. We partnered with the school to see what the school wanted and what the community wanted, and this was something that everyone was in agreement that this was the next step, that they wanted a shade. That way it would provide an opportunity to allow them to use that outdoor learning area more often. Using the outdoor space would enhance student learning. It is the direction that a lot of the schools in the district are going towards. So we as well would like to see this be put up at the school. The community at Sherwood really does want this built.
Okay. Hold on a second. Any questions?
None.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
At this point, we will take testimony from people who are in favor of granting the conditional and variance use requests. Would anybody like to come forward and testify in support? Seeing none, is there anybody that wants to testify in opposition to the conditional use and variance requests? Okay. Gentlemen, anything prior to closing the public testimony portion of the case?
None for me.
Yep.
Nope.
Okay.
Go ahead and close. You need a motion?
Let's motion.
Okay, move, we go into, we calling this executive?
No, we're just closing the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We've got a motion to close public hearing and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Shekels.
Aye.
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Haber.
Aye. Good. Gentlemen, who would like to start our discussion here?
I'm in favor of it. We've approved a number of these in the past. No opposition as well cited.
I'm in agreement. We've done these in the past to school, various other schools, and I think it's a great idea. Appreciate the efforts of the school and the committees putting this together. I have one question for us. If we make a motion to approve, can I do the conditional and the variance in the same motion? Right. One motion, right? Okay.
Yeah, I'm in favor as well.
Okay.
Just seems like like you said, we've done a number of these. Staff always does a great job regarding their position, and I'm in agreement that we grant both the conditional use and variance requests. And would entertain a motion.
I'd like to move that we approve both the conditional use and the variance, and I'd like to, as support, I'd like to reference the staff report and include that as for support. The date is
March 8th.
dated March 8th.
Construction bid to begin.
Yeah. Construction to commence within a year and be completed by 2.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion to approve the conditional use and variance requests with a couple additions, with a couple of conditions. We also have a second. Any other discussion? Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Shekels.
Aye.
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Haber.
Aye. When should we allow tell the appellant as to when.
Well, so we need to prepare a zoning certificate, and then we'll let you know when it's ready.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Now we're going on to case 10-2023 BZA, a variance request to allow structures incidental to the use of the land for agricultural purposes at 2003 Forest Crest Way. And at this point, I would request for staff to provide their report.
Thank you. The applicant is Jeffrey and Gail Conrad, who are the property owners. The location is at 2003 Forest Crest Way. The zoning is B residence, which is single family. And the request is a variance to allow structures incidental to the use of the land for agricultural purposes within 100 feet from any property line. The applicants have chickens and they have bees. So those are the two structures that they're requesting the setback for. This is per Article 3.1C11A and Article 3.1C14E of the zoning resolution. The bees are proposed at 12 feet from the side property line, and then the chicken coop, which is labeled tool shed on the site plan, is proposed to be 8 feet from the property line in the front yard area. A little bit of history on the site: that it was constructed in 1969, and the applicants purchased it in 1983. There's been a little bit of zoning permit history. One was in August 2021 for solar panel system. And then in November 2022, staff received a complaint of debris and signs throughout the yard. We did an inspection and didn't find a violation. We received another complaint in February about the farm animals, and that's when the notice of violation letter was sent on February the 27th, 2023. And there were two separate complaints for the farm animals. So this is the site in question. Is located at the corner of Forest Crest Way and Clough Pike. It's at the northwest corner. This is an aerial view. The property is somewhat unique as it is situated because it really doesn't have a defined rear yard area. For zoning purposes, a rear yard, this does not meet a rear yard setback, and this area does not meet a rear yard setback. So this is considered a side yard area, and then all frontages along the streets, so Forest Crest and Clough, are considered front yard areas.
Okay, so clarification is that the area of the driveway is a rear yard, but it does not satisfy.
It does not meet the definition of a rear yard for zoning purposes.
Okay.
So this would be a side, and this is a side. It's a
Okay.
corner lot, so
Okay,
it does have a front yard here, and almost has a double frontage lot. The only really rear yard would be outside the front yard area in this particular location.
okay, thank you.
This is the topography. There's just a slight slope from the north to the south on the property. And then area map. This is Forest Crest, which is a cul-de-sac, single-family homes, and all the other surrounding properties are single-family as well. These are site photos. This photo in particular was taken from the sidewalk on Forest Crest, looking to the west, and there are multiple structures. It was difficult for us to determine exactly what was being used for farm animals, so that may be a good question for the applicant. There appears to be a couple of structures, one in this particular area, and you'll see another one that's just a fenced enclosure. This is the other fenced enclosure, and then you can see the beehives in this picture here. This was looking from Clough back toward the property, so this was looking toward the north, the beehive in the forefront of the photo. And again, it was a little unclear. The applicant did not want us taking pictures on their property, so we took them from the street. This is the site plan that was submitted. So this is what is labeled tool shed on the site plan. However, the request is a variance for farm animals or for the structures that enclose farm animals. And then the beehives were proposed back here, although as you saw in the picture, the beehives were out toward Clough Pike. So it was a little unclear in the application if the beehives were proposed to be moved or remain in their location if approved. So variance findings for this are the standard area variance findings that are in the staff report. Staff was of the opinion that the property in question would yield a reasonable return without the variance, and that there can be a beneficial use of the property without the variance. It's zoned for single family, as is all the surrounding area zoned for single family. The zoning requirements for agricultural uses is that the structure be set back 100 feet from all property lines, and staff was of the opinion that that requirement is to minimize any potential nuisances to properties and adjacent properties, so they are only permitted on larger properties so that they can be set back and not create a nuisance. Staff is of the opinion that the variance is substantial. The requirement is 100 feet, and the applicants are requesting 12 feet and 8 feet respectively. The essential character could be altered, and adjoining properties could suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. This particular property is at a corner, a very visible corner of a highly traveled cleft pike, and we feel that that may have been one of the reasons why we received the complaint in the first place. But it could, just because of the visibility of their property, it could have negative impacts on surrounding properties. It would not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services, but staff is of the opinion that the spirit and intention behind the requirement would not be observed by granting the variance. Again, the requirement is that on properties 5 acres or more, they're not regulated, they are exempt, but on anything less than 5 acres, the structures would need to be 100 feet. And in this particular case, one is proposed at 8 feet and the other is at 12 feet. So that is the staff report. I did want to make a statement because we have been receiving multiple calls about this particular case, and I just wanted to clarify that the hearing before the board tonight is strictly a variance from the zoning resolution. It's not a request to change, and that would only be for this particular property, not changing the entire township zoning resolution. That's not the role of this board. This board is to only hear variances to the zoning resolution. If residents wanted to request a change to the actual zoning resolution, that's a different process that goes before our zoning commission and our board of township trustees. So tonight's request is before this board, and this is the only authority that this board has, is to hear variances from the existing regulations, not change the regulations. So I just wanted to make that clear because we had received a lot of calls and it is confusing. There's been some different information out there, so I just wanted to make that clarification. So,
Thank you.
did you have any other questions about the staff?
Questions?
I don't have any. Thank you.
Okay, no questions? Then we invite the appellant up to the podium here. Please identify yourself, your address, your affiliation, and anything that you would like to add for the appeal.
Okay, my name is Jeff Conrad. I live at 2003 Forest Crest Way, the above-mentioned property, and I'm representing myself. My wife and I purchased this property in 1983, and it had a farm, Bauer Farm to the left on the corner where the present green space is. They had a Whitmire farm there to the right of it where they had chickens, and behind us was a 160-acre farm. And so in 1987, the township adopted this zoning ordinance with the 100-foot setback. Fortunately, by Ohio law, we already have a variance created. Ohio law section 713.15 states that if the party has owned the property before the zoning resolution was enacted and is not this non-conforming use is not extended for more than 2 years at a particular time, that party has a variance by law. And there's the preemptive doctrine means that the state of Ohio law prevails over Anderson Township ordinance.
Just for clarification, Mr. Chairman, it would not be a variance. It would be a non-conforming use. If there was evidence put on by the applicant that they had used that continuously since prior to the adoption of the zoning resolution. But I have not seen anything. First of all, it's not part of the variance application. Second of all, they, as far as I know, have never sought nor received a certificate of a non-conforming use on the property. So I think we go ahead with the request for a variance. If the applicant has, contention that he has a non-conforming use in regard to the property, that's a different proceeding than a variance.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess he's saying that it's not a variance because we didn't have a non-conforming use because we preceded the adoption of the setback regulations. I don't know if that's what he's saying, but I don't know. So that's pretty much all I had to say. And when you talk about, this place was rural, and people want to have rural opportunities anymore. This 100-foot setback makes 99% of this township ineligible for have any of these bees, chickens, roosters, and even and everything they have is so vague. It says structural uses. A structural use could also be considered to be a garden bed or a greenhouse. So these ordinances they should be void for vagueness. And number two, they don't reflect the needs or the opportunities for happiness which should be provided to the township residents. So that's all I have to say. So ours is, it's stated 713.15. We're all set.
Just one further clarification.
Thank you.
713.15 doesn't apply to townships. I think what Mr. Conrad would probably be more accurately citing would be 519.19, which relates to townships and non-conforming uses.
Okay. So tonight is tonight is a variance request
Correct.
and not consideration of a non-conforming use of the statute that you just identified.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything in any of the applications or anything like that that would, suggest there was a non-conforming use on the property. And I've talked with Mr. Conrad a couple weeks ago about clarifying what his and his wife's request is on this property, because there was potential for a interpretation of the staff decision, or there was a request for a variance. And Mr. Conrad made it very clear to me that it was request for a variance, and that's why the staff report is written as it is because I passed that information along to the staff,
Okay.
because that was a question that we needed clarification on.
Okay. So tonight's a variance request.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
There was no discussion in our phone call about a non-conforming use. So this is surprising to me, and I'm sure to the staff as well.
Okay. Thank you. At this time, we would welcome testimony for anyone who is in support of the variance request. If you would please come to the podium, identify yourself, your address.
Sorry, Steve.
Hi, my name is Jessica.
Hold on a second, please.
Did anybody from the board want to question the appellant?
I thought I asked that, so if I did not,
No.
forgive me. Are there questions to the appellant?
Not
Paul, you have a question?
I do have a question.
Ma'am, we will get back to you in a minute. My apologies. It's a matter of order, and I'm not doing my job. Sir?
Yes, sir.
There's a reference to a tool shed. Is that where the chickens are being kept?
That's where they sleep at night.
Okay, otherwise are they free roaming on the property?
Yeah. And I have just one other aside. They make these statements of, this is classic. They make these statements about our property looking bad. Look across the street. My God, there's 5 cars sitting there in violation of the ordinance. There's probably 10. There's open buildings. There's no windows, all this stuff. And these things have been reported 5 or 6 or 7 times, and they've done nothing. That's why we get a little bit irate that they would try making a big deal out of something like this. And then another thing, despite all the problems, everybody says, oh, chickens are so bad. We did a statistical analysis. The residential home prices in our immediate surroundings is a 46% increase in the last 10 years. areas outside the township, outside and the rest of the township, the property values have risen 30%. So obviously, it's not a detriment to home values. Thank you.
Anything else? Any other question for the appellant?
I have a question.
Sir?
So how long have you had chickens?
Since 1983.
Continuous?
And when did you acquire the property?
1983. See, we bought it because they had chickens and stuff across there, and we've had, I had chickens and stuff when I was a kid growing up in College Hill. My wife had them down in a Winton Place, and so we saw, oh man, they had chickens, and we were living in an apartment, and so we came out here and we said, oh my God, chickens. So we got chickens and bees right down.
When did you get the bees?
They were about the same time. Thank you for your question.
Anything else? Questions for the appellant? Ma'am, if you would please come back up. We're listening for testimony and support.
Okay. My name is Jessica Conrad. I live at 2003 Forest Crest Way. I am their second oldest daughter. I have here a copy of our letter to the board asking for this appeal today. In our letter, we're asking for either an establishment by means of a variance or non-conforming use for our property for the maintaining of bees or poultry. We made that clear in our conversation with Mr. Powell. I was there for that call. In regards to the property,
Ma'am, can I ask you one question? Are you saying that you talked about a non-conforming use in our?
it says in our letter here, in conclusion, the appellants demand the defective complaint be dismissed and established by means of a variance and/or non-conforming use for the maintaining of bees and poultry.
But when I was talking
In the
on
call,
the telephone,
we did say that.
I asked specifically what you're requesting, and I was told that it was going to be a variance request. That's all I was told.
No, we said a variance or non-conforming use, and there are several people that were party to that call.
Okay, we disagree.
Okay.
And I can tell you, ma'am, that if there was a question about non-conforming use, I would have asked some of these questions about when the non-conforming use started. I've dealt with non-conforming uses all my legal career, so
There are four of us here that can give testimony to
that's
say
fine.
that's what we asked
That's
for.
absolutely fine, but if you would have said non-conforming use and we would have talked about
It's
it, I would
right
have
here
passed
in
that
our
on to this.
letter.
Okay. Again, we disagree.
Okay. In regards to chickens and the beekeeping, it's something that's becoming more popular. The city of Cincinnati allows beekeeping and the keeping of backyard chickens with minimal setbacks. In fact, the city of Pequot just changed their zoning to go from 5 acres to non-existent to allow this. Our own school district felt that it was such an important thing that they instituted the urban farm here in Anderson Township, which has a chicken program in which students can go and help in the care of this poultry throughout the school year. That was funded by the students at Mercer Elementary. In addition, chickens are great for mental health. They found that in a study from the Northumbria University in 2013, that chickens and keeping backyard chickens has helped reduce mental stress, depression, and even in people that are living in nursing homes, it reduces the need for antipsychotic medications. I am one of those people that does have mental health issues. I suffer from depression. My chickens are my therapy. They've kept me off of medication for quite a long time. In addition, we use the honey that we have on our property for healing uses. Honey has numerous issues, has numerous medicinal uses or benefits, and in denying us this request, it takes away the ability for us to treat ourselves homeopathically. This could be considered a violation and should be considered a violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, because it does ensure Americans protection to the operations of major bodily functions, including the immune system. And the penalties for violating that act are very harsh, including $75,000 for the first offense and $150,000 for any subsequent offense. I know in Mr. Cavallero's letter to my father, it states that getting a variance for agricultural structures would be detrimental to the character of our neighborhood. But clearly, Mr. Cavallero has not been in our neighborhood. These structures have been here for almost 40 years. My sisters and I raised quail, pheasants, chickens, and ducks on our property, in addition to my mom keeping the honeybees. Many of our immediate neighbors purchased their homes in the last 13 years because of these chickens and bees. If you look around our neighborhood, you would see 3 of the last remaining original farmhouses in our area, including the one that sits immediately across Clough Pike from our property. Also, Julius Park is 2 blocks from our house. The Park District renovated the playground in 2013 to resemble a farm, complete with silos, a windmill, and various play equipment to resemble a barnyard. As my father mentioned, we did a study. The average increase in property values for all of our neighboring properties within a quarter mile from our property since 2011 was 46%, which greatly exceeds the 3% annual increase in property values posted by the National Association of Real Estate Agents for this area. I've included several letters from local realtors enumerating that backyard chickens have no impact on property values.
Is there anything else?
No.
Questions from the board?
What act or regulation were we breaking?
The Americans with Disabilities Act.
American Disability. Is there anything else that we're breaking as far as, I know we're breaking the Constitution here. We're violating the Fourth Amendment. And now we're also going to be violating the American Disabilities Act. Are there any more?
No.
What other ones?
Hold on.
No.
I just want to make sure that we're not breaking the law.
No.
And you're saying that we would be?
It would be yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Pala, a matter of procedure here
Yes.
is I am under the impression that we are looking at this from a variance point of view only
Correct.
and not a non-conforming use.
Correct.
And any of our deliberations or whatever is whether or not a variance should or should not be granted.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I would just point out that in the letter that they sent to the township dated March 16th, it talks about, where'd it go? Talked about, basically that, I'll find it in a second, that they've been keeping poultry and honeybees for the past 13 years continuously. Yeah, at the top of the 3rd page, excuse me, it says, the appellants have continuously kept chickens and honeybees since 2010 for the production of eggs and honey for personal consumption.
Correct.
Okay.
At that point, that location, we had moved there. We moved them around our yard. And that location, we were there for 13 years.
I have one other question. May I ask this, we get this letter today in our packet. Is that part of the?
It's not.
It's not. So because it
Correct.
came in afterwards.
Unless somebody's here to testify about the information in the letter.
That's what I
something that
wanted
can't
to
be
know.
considered by
Because
the
there's,
board.
that
Right.
would be germane to
Correct.
testimony.
Correct.
Okay.
And a matter of procedure, if, let's just say that they didn't get the approval, then their next step is court of appeals?
That's a next step after this, after any kind of a quasi-judicial hearing like this. If a neighboring property owner or the applicant wants to appeal the board's decision, they have a right to file a 2506 appeal.
Okay.
They could also look at other potential remedies. Obviously, one is going to the township trustees to try to get, the trustees to change the setbacks for agricultural uses on smaller size lots, that's their option. They could also, if they have evidence of a non-conforming use that they can present, they want to apply for a non-conforming use, we'd have to consider that as well. But that's not what tonight's hearing is about.
So if we're breaking a couple laws already, it might make sense for the courts to make the decision.
I think we have our duty to make our decision based on what the evidence you hear tonight is, based on our standards under a variance in the zoning resolution. But if that's where it goes, that's where it goes. Right.
Thanks.
Anything else? At this point, we're hearing testimony from people who are in favor of granting the variance request. Does anyone else want to testify in support of this variance request?
I didn't take the oath, though.
Well, come on up and I'll... Ma'am, if you would raise your right hand.
Let's
Do
see,
you-
right, make sure.
Well, you could do both, maybe. Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Your name, address,
Carol
and
Williams, I
affiliation.
live at 7990 Clough Pike. I actually live right next door to the Conrads. When we looked at this house 13 years ago, when I saw those chickens, I became excited because there's such joy. It was like, oh my gosh, they have chickens. Now, I moved from Madisonville, which I was there 23 years, but the house had everything we wanted, a driveway, a garage, all the things that a good family would probably need if they had active people in their family. So just those chickens, the honeybees, I know when people come to my house, they can't wait to see the chickens, to go over to the fence and see them. They've never been a nuisance. There's never been a problem with the chickens, even the honeybees. I mean, we love bees. They're our pollinators. I can't imagine people being against, these bees that are tended to. It's not like they don't tend to their beehives and their bees. I actually can't imagine why it's such a big deal. I can't imagine somebody complaining, for one, because it's not like all the other things that families could be doing. So I can't imagine why someone would find that to be a nuisance. However, we all have our free will and thoughts, but they bring a lot of joy. I know when people, like I said, come to my house, they cannot wait, especially if there's kids, to see those chickens. And we've actually had the blessing of them allowing us to interact and the kids to actually go in the chicken coop thing and get the eggs and just see how, because I think a lot of kids just think, you get them at the store. They're not really seeing the big picture. And I know that Anderson has a lot of different diversity for people. But if you have been raised up to know the love of family, the love of the land, and they just do so many things great. They invest so much in their yard, plants and things. My yard is barren. However, I know that it brings a lot of joy when you look over and they have these beautiful flowers, the chickens, and just what they even do with different things I didn't even realize chickens could eat. And just because I'm city girl, used to the city way, and I've learned a lot from the Conrads and their wonderful things that they've got going on in their yard. It's just amazing. They really have taught me a lot, and it's just been a real blessing. I can't imagine that they would not be able, again, to have these chickens. And though they might not have a lot of room as far as feet, but it's never been a problem for us at all. However, wherever the chickens are, they stay in the yard basically, and they bring a lot of joy. And it's just a good thing. That's where the eggs come from. It's all good. So I just want to say they're commendable people, and they have done fantastic things, and hope they get to keep doing them, because we really need honeybees, and the chickens, as well as food, they just bring a lot of joy. And they are, I feel like, a soothing thing. If you enjoy animals, it's really, really awesome. And just recently, 2 of my nephews have begun to raise chicken. One of them lives in Milford, one lives in Loveland. I mean, they have their chicken coops, and people having chickens has become more acceptable, and I think people like that. So, yeah, and they take care of their stuff, so I'm really pleased, very blessed. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, can I say one last thing? And again, my property line is right with theirs. I mean, we are just right in it together, like, so it's not ever been a problem.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Still taking testimony from people who are in support. Please come to the podium. State your name, address.
My name's Patty Reed. I'm with Save Your Bees at 6089 Salem Road. When they came to me telling me what was going on, I decided that I had a need to represent the bees for sure and the chickens. We have hundreds of hives. We have hundreds of hives, well, not hundreds of hives, many hives, dozens of hives on other people's properties that are in residential areas, and have never had a complaint from a neighbor, from a board, anything like this about our bees. The bees are safe. They shouldn't be on a street corner, but they don't need to be 100 feet set away from another property line. That's really ridiculous standard. They're non-aggressive. Bees are not aggressive. They are not going to hurt someone unless someone comes up and knocks on their hive. Or you step on one. As a kid, I stepped on lots of bees. It's not something that happens. We wear shoes. We didn't wear shoes in the 70s. So I think that the 100 feet is an absurd amount, and I like whoever it was that said, going to the Board of Trustees and having that changed. Plan on doing that. But I'm here to represent and help them out today. That bees are not a hindrance. They should not be unsightly. They are less of a hindrance or to a property value than dogs would be. They are not the least bit dangerous or unsightly and should not disturb any neighbors.
Questions? Thank you. Again, taking testimony from people who are in support of the variance request. Does anybody want to come forward in support? Seeing none, we'll now take testimony from those people who are opposed of the variance request. If you would please come up to the podium. Ma'am? Please come to the podium, state your name and address. And were you sworn in before?
Yeah.
Thank you.
2028 Forest Crest Way, Anna Derminio. Look, I don't want to get their chickens taken away. They're their friends. I get it. I have a dog and a cat. My cat I could not live without. I've had him 17 years. He's my best friend in the world. And I love animals. But we did have an issue last year in this, I don't remember what season it was actually, but where the bees made two hives, I think, in between our neighbor's yard, one in our neighbor's yard and one in our yard. And they were enormous. And though we quickly realized, they must have come from their yard maybe. Like, I don't know. If they didn't, maybe we should ask them for help, because they obviously know about bees. Maybe they'll have something that can take them away or something. So I don't remember if it was my mom or my brother, but one of them went over and said, hey, there's some bees in our yard and making a hive. And really quickly, one of them said, those are our bees, give them back. And it's like, okay, sorry would be nice. If my dog had gone over and taken a dump in their yard, I wouldn't be like that, because they were swarming, and we couldn't let our dog outside in the backyard. And our neighbors have 3 small children and who wanted to play in their backyard. And they also have a dog who's young and so for a few days we weren't able to let our dog out in the backyard. We had to take her in the front yard to do her business. And it was very inconvenient, and I didn't know that they were allowed to have it against the convenience of neighbors, even though we live a few houses down, if you look on the map. I would be concerned as to what happens to the chickens, though, and the bees if they were taken away or anything, because I do work at an animal shelter, not work, I volunteer at an animal shelter, and I would be concerned as to what happens to them, because obviously our shelters are overrun and the bees are needed as we're losing bees in this world, and you don't want to make them extinct or anything. So I just wanted to let you guys know about the little snafu and have you consider that maybe they need to be placed somewhere else or managed in a different way. Not necessarily taken away, but managed better or whatever. Thank you, that's it.
Ma'am,
Can you restate your name, please?
Anna Dominio.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know.
I asked them to bring up the neighborhood plan so I understand where you live.
2028. It was in between 2028 and trying to see, 26, is that? 36? Yeah, there was a hive on the fence edge on their side and on our side. We have a tree growing a Japanese maple, I think. If I got that wrong, Mom's gonna kill me. But hopefully I got it right. Horticulture, yay. But if there was like a huge hive there and an enormous one in our neighbor's yard, and you could see out the window.
What happened to the hive after that?
Well, the first time the hive, the woman came over and like did the smoke stuff and took care of the hive, took it away, and like took the queen out or something. And I couldn't be near it because, like I said, it was huge and I didn't want to get stung or anything. We didn't want to be near it. But then when another one was made a few days later by stragglers, my brother got tired of it and just froze it during the night by spraying it with a hose and took care of it that way. And it died, so.
Any other questions? Thank you. Again, I'll let you an opportunity. Yeah, you're welcome. I just wanted to continue.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
As applicant, he does have the right to cross-examine the witness.
Okay.
If that's his preference.
My only intention was to go through.
I understand, but since she was a witness and because it's, the applicant's
Good.
allowed to cross-examine witnesses. That's one of the hallmarks of the quasi-judicial hearing. So
Thank you. Again, I'm not doing my job very well. But come on up here, sir.
it's not usual that it happens.
My only response to that is a little point of clarification.
Did you want to
their
ask,
house is like-
Mr. Conrad, did you want to ask her questions or do you want to, 'cause
Okay,
if-
how do you know the bees came from our yard?
Because the woman my mom talked to said those are our bees, give them back.
And who was that
So
person?
just a quick, we're recording this, so we need everyone to speak into a mic so it can be recorded. So if you don't
Sorry.
mind to come up to the,
She's not sure which one of them it was.
I'm sorry, we need you to speak into the mic so we can get the recording.
She's not sure which of the two women there it was from this angle.
And my only other
I think it was this one, but.
My only other question is, what?
I'm sorry, can you please speak into the mic? We're recording this.
My only other question is, what difference would a setback make from a bees can travel up to 3 miles?
Mr. Conrad, anything else?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, thank you. Continuing, we are continuing with people who are speaking in opposition of granting the variance.
It might be helpful if I explain what the swarming is.
That's up to the board.
Go ahead.
Please come up. The board is in agreement.
What she's speaking of seeing is a swarming, which is a ball of bees. So in the spring, I'm assuming this happened in the springtime, because that's when swarming happens. We had 2 swarm calls this week already. Huge amounts of bees that will leave a colony because they run out of space. They make a new queen, and then they leave looking for a new home. That's what we specialize in, saving your bees. So that swarm ball of bees that she saw could have come from anywhere. It's not necessarily come from them. It could come from anywhere. The bees, the queen can only travel a limited amount of time because she's very large, and the bees all stay with her. So when she gets tired and she lands somewhere, the rest of the bees surround her until she has the strength to move on. So that's what she's describing. Given that, there's no way that you would know where they came from. That's all. Any questions?
They said they built the hive?
She said hive. What she meant was a swarm.
Oh, okay.
So people do that all the time. They'll say, I have a hive of bees. No, you don't. You have a ball of bees. That's a swarm.
Okay.
It's just the lingo. So what she's talking about is a swarm. They're loose bees.
Again, we can only take the testimony in the microphone. We are recording this. It won't pick up if you're not speaking into the microphone. Thank you.
I know what I saw, ma'am. I saw a swarm of bees that I was afraid to bring my dog close to. I was afraid to open the door. That was the swarm, right?
Okay, yeah.
And then I saw things that they built in both the neighbor's yards, hanging from 2 tree branches. Those were the hives, correct?
Boxes?
No, like figure things.
Okay.
That's a swarm. That's a swarm.
Okay, and they had built 2 swarms.
That's the bees. That's not their boxes.
Right.
What they're not allowed to have is the boxes, is what they're talking about, the boxes that the bees
Yeah,
live
okay,
in.
but they had built like
Okay,
the kind you see in Winnie the Pooh.
Those are the swarms.
Okay, well, they had built 2 of those things
Okay.
in each of our
I was
yards,
just
and we had to
clarifying.
freeze
I'm
one.
not
Thank you.
arguing, I'm just clarifying.
Thank
so,
you.
So for my benefit to understanding
They were
this,
swarming like a tornado, like the verb swarm.
That'll happen, yeah.
Mr. Powell?
does a swarm just bees? It's not any kind of a structure that they build? 'Cause it
Correct.
sounds like she's saying that there was something that was constructed
Very
by the bees.
rarely, the bees, if they're there a long period of time, they could begin to build comb. But basically, that's going to be a very small, and it's still a swarm. It's still a swarm.
So if she says she saw something that was constructed by the bees as opposed to just a conglomeration of the bees together,
It's still a swarm.
okay, but so the swarm could include the beginnings of the building of honeycombs.
Of honeycomb, but
Okay,
but
okay.
that could be a wild, I mean,
Okay.
totally could be just wild bees that have
So
swarmed.
we don't know how long they were there or anything like that, so.
Yeah,
You're not discrediting what she said.
No, I'm
You
just trying to clarify
right. No,
things.
I just wanted to understand for my own. Thank you.
Okay,
Cool. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Testimony in opposition. Please come to the podium. We'll take care of that. Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Your name, address?
Linda Dorminio, 2028 Forest Crest Way. Anna's my daughter. And yeah, there was swarms. They were forming. There was structure that was being built by the bees in our neighbor's house as well as on our tree. Yes, there was a swarm. I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't just bees because they were inside whatever structure they had built. And I'm honestly I don't know. Our neighbor asked them to come to get the bees, and a female in one of the bee suits came and got them. So I don't know what of you it was. We were grateful that you did, whoever came and took the bees back.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to clarify.
Okay.
But there
Thank-
was one question, there was a physical structure there.
Yes, there
Okay.
was. Because some of it was left on the tree after the bees died because of a hard freeze came. And there was still some structure on our little tree. I don't know our neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we are taking testimony of people who are in opposition to granting the variance request. Does anyone else want to testify in opposition? Mr. Conrad, after that last testimony, is there any final thing you would like to say?
I just restate our position. We've satisfied requirements to retain our bees and chickens, and we've had a salutary effect on the neighborhood, and thrilled many neighbors bringing their grandkids and stuff, getting a hold of chicken and an egg and stuff like that, and giving local honey to people to fight immune diseases. And so we're just happy with the way things are, and they give us a lot of enjoyment. Well, I don't see why this just can't continue.
How many chickens do you have?
Oh God, I don't mess with them. How many chickens we got? 10.
You have 10 chickens?
Yeah.
No rooster?
No.
How do you get eggs?
You don't. That's weird. I thought you needed a rooster to get eggs. You don't.
You don't?
No.
Interesting.
It's weird. I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
What can I say? Thank you.
Remember, there are no dumb questions.
Ma'am?
Just in response to that.
Hold on. Come to the microphone, please.
When I first moved into the house, the first thing I heard was a rooster crowing in the middle of the day, and I was confused. And maybe the rooster is deceased now, I don't know. But I have heard it fairly recently, consistently, pretty much every single day. So I don't know where the rooster lives. I assumed it was with the chickens because they need a rooster, but I don't know.
Okay.
Just wanted to clarify.
All right, thank you. Refute.
So we are not the only people here in Anderson that have chickens. They're actually really common. And there are several properties on Clough Pike that have them, one of whom also has a rooster. So we don't have one currently.
Okay.
When's the last time you had a rooster?
It's been several months.
Okay, so it's been months, not years.
Correct.
Okay.
And how many of those bee boxes?
We have 2 beehives.
2? Okay. Thanks.
And did anybody that you know of respond to the request from the neighbors at 2028 Forest Crest Way in relation to the bee swarming that you just heard the testimony about?
I mean, my mom and my sisters are beekeepers. If we do get complaints from, or if some of our neighbors ask us to come and remove bee swarms, we take it, we'll come and take and remove them from the property. It doesn't mean they're going to stay at our place, but you have no idea,
Sure.
you have no way of knowing where they came from.
So has that happened recently for you guys? Have had to go cultivate, if you will,
I don't believe she's sworn in.
Yeah, I have not been sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
So help you God.
Yes, I do.
Name and address.
So my name's Amanda. I also live at 2003 Forest Crest Way. I've been a beekeeper for a long time now. On average, I get about 12 or 15 calls every year from bees in the township, from swarms. It actually does a good service. It stops people from calling the fire department. Patty gets a bunch of calls too. I think she averages about 50 calls a year, normally from people in Anderson Township getting swarms of bees. You really have no idea how to, where they come from or anything. Most beekeepers, including myself, we do swarm management to avoid getting swarms. You just add boxes, you can change brood frames, things like that to stop swarms from happening. I know we do that, so chances of it being our swarm, pretty much 0. But like I said, on average, I've gotten some from the park, Julius Park. I've gotten them from a lot of surrounding neighborhoods and things like that. I've captured plenty of swarms, rehomed them to people that are starting out. I've also helped start the bee and chicken program at Mercy Montessori, is it? Done a lot of educational programs for kids about the keeping of chickens and bees, how to keep them clean, how to start them up, things like that. So yes, there are tons of swarms. There was a couple years ago, I think it was the one at the Red Stadium. Yeah, you don't know where they come from. It just happens. Sometimes it's beekeepers. Most of the time it's just wild swarms. There's bees everywhere. So it's really hard to say where they come from.
Any questions? Thank you. Before we close the public testimony portion, is there anything that any of the board members would like to hear from, or are we ready to close?
I'm ready to close.
Ready?
Motion?
Mr. Chairman, did we ever get clarification on where the bees are going to be located? I know on the pictures Paul had, they were closer to Clough Pike on the
Thank you.
The application or the site plan. It shows them further back than where they are now, but I don't think there was any testimony on where they are going to be, how far they are from the property line, things like that.
Thank you, Mr. Powell.
So according to the zoning, it says that they need to be in the rear of the house. We are more than willing to move them to the spot that's located on the image there, just to be more in compliance. Hamilton County guidelines also say that they need to be in the rear of the house, but as mentioned, we don't actually have a backyard. So we would have to be behind the house.
Is this,
So they're located adjacent to Clough?
In
right
our side
now?
yard, yes.
Yeah.
What
Okay.
we consider our side yard.
Okay.
yeah, they're currently there. Is this where you're saying you would put them?
I would put them there, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Also, I don't know that we've gotten much clarification on the shed, the poultry container, for want of a better
Yeah.
thing. Also, I think
Well, yeah, in the letter, they state it's an alleged agricultural study.
right
And
I mean,
alleging that animals were, so that they don't say that there's been any in there.
right. I don't think we've gotten any detail about what the composition of the structure is either, have we? I mean, I know Paul had indicated in the pictures there was a fenced-in area, but I don't know that we got clarification that that's where the chickens are kept, or if it's an actual, tool shed, I think as it says on the map.
Thank you.
Could one of you come up to the podium, please?
Yeah, to clarify his question, that cage, like link fence, chain link fence, that's a dog run. That's, right, that's a dog run.
That's a dog run?
Okay,
Yeah, we're out there messing with our flowers and the dogs bark
Okay.
like crazy and they run around, so we stick them in the air for a little
Okay,
while.
so
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
In the letter that you sent on March 16th, you said alleged agriculture structures, and by inference, alleged animals housed therein. So are they actually alleged, or are they actual animal structures?
It's a multi-use structure.
That's not what I asked. Are animals housed in them?
Yes.
Okay, that's why. Okay.
Okay, and so were tools there. Thank you.
So I think we still need more clarification, because if we don't know what the structure is made of, if it's enclosed, if it's open.
Paul, that's really, I don't think that's germane to the discussion here in
Well-
terms of the zoning. I think that's
up to the board to decide, but I think the board should hear
Right.
to understand what it is, because that may impact how close it is to the property line, things like that, as far as noise.
Well, I think the testimony before was that these are free-range chickens, and there is a structure where they go into at night, which is probably a good idea with raccoons or whatever around here. So can you give us some more definition as to where the chickens roam, what structure is being used at nighttime for?
So the structure in question, that orange structure there, is a tool shed. There are tools hanging inside of it. There's tools hanging on the outside of it. It is a tool shed. The chickens can go in and out. We leave it open during the day. They can go in it at night.
So does that completely close up?
It does
Or-
close up, yes.
So-
Yeah, it's hard to see because the picture is not really very
Right.
good. It's
Question is,
a
the
distant
chickens,
picture.
the chickens go in there by themselves, or do
They
you
do go
herd
in
them
there by
in?
themselves.
Okay, and then you secure them at night.
Correct.
So you close the doors and
Correct.
everything, so it is a housing animals then.
If
It's
you
a
wanna-
matter of, I mean, we're all in the business of word smiths here. And so it's either
It's
an
not a
animal
coop.
we may have 14 other things in it, but animals live in that structure.
I wouldn't say live in it. They sleep there.
That's
if
where they lay
want
their
to.
eggs, I assume.
That's where they, so they're.
No, they can lay their eggs anywhere in the yard.
okay.
They do.
Well, we know they don't need a rooster.
So, okay.
Mr. Powell, is that
Yeah, it's
satisfied?
up to you guys if that's satisfactory. I mean, if
Okay.
you have enough information.
So I guess I can hardly tell what that is.
It's a tool shed.
It is?
Yes.
It looks like it's open on one side. Is that because there's a door
Mm-hmm.
that's not shut?
Correct.
Is that orange piece, is that the door that shuts and closes it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Since we were restricted in our ability to get close to it, I find it difficult to see what you're talking about, quite frankly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you.
The other area, the caged area where you put your dogs when you don't want them to run around, is that used for any other animals?
No,
Just the dogs?
just the dogs, so that they stay in the yard.
Okay, and then I see you've got the hives back there, but you're talking about moving them
We are
up to
talking
where
about moving them, yes.
where the shed is. And have you ever thought about an 8-foot fence?
We're not allowed to have one. We've asked for one.
They have?
Yes,
It wouldn't work, so.
You couldn't do it?
because of the way that our property is laid out, we can't have a fence.
Because that's a quarter lot, John. It won't work with.
Corner lots are such a
Yeah.
pain. So, okay,
You good?
yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How about a motion to close the public testimony?
So moved.
Second?
We've got a motion and a second to close the public testimony portion of this case.
I don't think we have to take, Carrie, I don't think we have to take roll for closing the public. No, we don't need to take roll for
We don't?
closing.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
close the public.
Just closed.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Who would like to get us started on this case?
Well, there's a lot of peripheral stuff going in many spokes in many different directions here. But that's not our job as the Board of Zoning Appeals. Our job is to decide if we are going to issue a variance based on the current regulations. The regulations are in place now. And all the other stuff about whatever, whether bees are good for us and chickens are good for us, it's just peripheral items. The question we have to answer is this variance the right thing based on the current zoning laws we have?
Okay. Anyone else?
I would echo what Mr. Drury said as well earlier. We're not a rule-making body. That's the trustee's job. That's the Board of Zoning's job. We are more to define, interpret, and in this case, apply a variance if it fits the situation. That's more. I mean, the board as well knows this. It's more as well just to reiterate for the public's sake that the buck doesn't stop here when it comes to the zoning laws.
Brian?
I drove past this property twice, and I was confused both times, because I wasn't sure about what was being used for what. And I appreciate the benefit of bees, chickens, urban farming. I have a neighbor up the street. I see chickens running around his yard. I don't have a problem with it. As I read this appeal, I was still confused because it seemed like the complaint was with the resolution. And I thought, well, that's not for us. That's the township. It's the trustees. And then I thought, well, there's a statement that the staff's interpretation is flawed. So I read the article, the clause, and it seemed clear to me. It's 100 feet. And so then I was like, well, does it meet the criteria for an appeal? But I didn't really see where it addresses the appeal, our criteria for an appeal. So reading the staff report, it seems like they have come down accurately. Reasonable return.
Your microphone's away.
Reasonable return without the variance, yes. The staff's opinion says that it is substantial. I think that's probably accurate. That the neighborhood would suffer a substantial detriment. I don't know that it would, but it might. And then later, the staff says it's very visible, could have a detriment, so I agree with that. The spirit and intent, and obviously the township has decided that they want 100 feet. So whether that's good or bad, that's for them to decide. And I know our home is our castle, but when you go into a subdivision, you're going to give up some of those privileges, and these rules are not only designed to keep the applicant's property from being a nuisance to his neighbors, but it's also to keep his neighbor's properties from being a nuisance to him. So that's part of being in the subdivision. So
As part of that, we grant the variance to an address. We don't grant a variance to them. So if they sold this place tomorrow and we would grant the variance, there's no reason why anybody could 20 more of whatever we get a variance for. If we're granting a variance for pink flamingos in the front yard and we say it's okay, the next owner of the house can put 400 pink flamingos in the front yard. Am I correct?
Well,
within reason.
They would be
Exaggeration,
allowed to
obviously.
utilize the variance because the variance
Yep.
runs with the land. It's not dependent upon the owners of the property. Correct.
Correct. That's what I'm
Yes.
trying to define.
I won't go into the flamingos. argument.
No, I was trying to make a point. It's with the land. It's not with the owners. And it's perpetual.
Well, I guess the bottom line is that Hamilton County allows for a 20-foot setback for 10 chickens, and for beehives, a 10-foot setback. And I know driving through Mount Lookout, I've seen beehives in the front yard of a person on Linwood that also does honey. So I guess my feeling is that I don't think there's a problem with them if they were maintained in an area that was at least 20 foot from the line and 10 foot respectively. And the only other thing is that I'm concerned about being told that we might be breaking the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution and the American Disabilities Act. That always concerns me when I'm being told that I'm breaking the law in one way or another. And so with that being thrown out, I often think that, well, then it should go before a court to make that determination. In fact, if we are breaking the law based on those two issues. But I don't know. Long and short is that there's a lot of people with beehives all over the place, and so I don't see a big problem with them. I just feel that maybe they should take a little bit more responsibility with regard to how they maintain the beehives and how they maintain their chickens in their yard. And thereby, maybe if they could get a 4-foot fence and enclose it a little bit, I don't know if that's possible.
I'll take some exception, John. It's not germane to this what Hamilton County rules are. It makes no difference. And if the Silverton has one in there that's,
Well, I know that.
Silverton had one that's 200 feet from the property line. That doesn't apply to us either. So all we can apply is what we have here in our regulations.
Right,
Yeah.
and we can
And,
look at that
Yeah,
application.
I'm not here to judge whether chickens are good or bad, or bees are good or bad. I'm here to judge. And if someone has issue with that, then they need to take it up with the trustees and get it changed in the zoning regulation. Because that's not our job here. The same, just because somebody has an 8-foot-high solid wall in the Anderson Township and is maintaining it well, doesn't mean we should just ignore it and let everybody else who wants one put up an 8-foot-high wall.
And it might be different if it were 95 feet setback, and maybe the property is maybe the neighbors are farther away. Maybe then the variance is more appropriate, but maybe we're weighing all these things, and each property comes to us uniquely, so.
I'm in agreement with, I think, Mr. Shekels, Mr. Johnson, in that it seems like if we're looking at it from a variance point of view, the variance is substantial. And I think you just brought up a good point, Mr. Johnson, regarding it. If we were looking at 95 feet, it would seem that maybe a variance from 100 to 95 feet would not be that substantial. But it seems to me that the request here in the lot, given our responsibility regarding the zoning resolution, is that this is a substantial variance request.
I'm in agreement with you.
Can we get a motion here?
I'd like to move that, would it be deny, or how would I word that? Deny the variance request and cite as evidence the staff report. Pardon? And the testimony. Okay.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Johnson, second. Any other discussion? Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. Shekels.
Aye.
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin.
Aye.
Mr. Haber.
Aye. All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Just because the issue of a non-conforming use was raised earlier, I just wanted to point out that they still have that ability to file for a non-conforming use. Obviously, the staff put out a notice, as required by law, that referred just to a variance. The property owner received a copy of that and never said, this is an error. We're also requesting a non-conforming use. So nobody in the public was advised that there may be a potential for non-conforming use application here.
Okay.
So, it's just for the property owner's benefit. Obviously, we talked earlier about talking to the trustees if they thought that was an avenue. If they claim that there's a non-conforming use, then we would have to hear that. They'd have to provide the evidence to support that. But, that's something that's not foreclosed to them either.
Okay.
I just wanted to make that clear because, like I said, there was discussion, and it does refer to a non-conforming use at the end of the letter that they called. I still maintain that we didn't talk specifically about a non-conforming use in our conversation because that would have brought up some red flags for me and some further discussion, because I asked for a variance, whether they're doing a variance or a staff interpretation. They said a variance.
Okay.
So I don't want to foreclose that just because of the conversation, but the notice went out for a variance, not for a non-conforming use. So we couldn't consider the non-conforming use as part of this hearing but it's not necessarily foreclosed to them if they can provide the proof and the evidence that's required to get the board to say, yes, there is a non-conforming.
And that
use.
would come back to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Yeah,
That comes
they
back-
would,
It originally
Right.
goes to staff, I believe.
right.
Paul?
Yes.
Yeah. So they would just resubmit as a variance in that case.
They would.
I mean, non-conforming use in that case.
But I would like to clarify, our zoning resolution was adopted in 1987, but prior to 1987, we fell under Hamilton County regulations, which date back to 1948.
Right.
So
Yes,
we would
exactly.
also need to do research as to when or if those regulations ever change.
Right. And that's why, again, this was not looked at as a request for non-conforming use, just a variance. So
Right.
staff didn't have an opportunity to look at that. The applicants didn't, really present anything directly on how long other than the comment in the letter that they've been continuously doing it for 13 years. So, again, that's not foreclosed to the Conrads. If they have the evidence to do that, they can make an application, talk with staff further about that, if that's their desire.
Okay.
Just for the audience as well, when the board, they take a straw vote, staff prepares the resolution. Generally, if there's a straw vote of denying the application, we have our legal counsel review that, and the board would take action on it next month. There's a 30-day appeals period from when a decision is made, so that is out there as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
and that is, once the decision is journalized by the board.
Correct,
So at
which would
the-
be next
At
month.
the May's meeting, it will be journalized, so 30 days would go from that to date.
So they would effectively have 2 months from today to
Yeah.
apply for,
But they won't, I mean, they can apply for a
Tomorrow,
non-conforming
but I
use,
mean-
talk to the trustees
Right.
tomorrow, right. But, so from the time that the decision is journalized by the board, that starts the 30-day period for the 2506 appeal, if that's what they chose to do.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Well, that's why I didn't want them to think they're under the gun to do this tomorrow, that they've got this basically 60-day window here. Right.
Okay, thank you. Going on to case number 11-2023 BZA, a variance request to allow 2 decks for various setbacks. And I would ask staff to provide their report.
Thank you. This is case 11-2023. The applicant is Kathleen and Matthew Stewart, who are the property owners. Locations at 696 Dunwoody Drive. In the zoning, there's AA residence. This is a request, a variance to allow 2 decks, both size 12 by 20, with a side yard setback of 10 feet where 12 feet is required. Again, the 2 decks have been constructed. They're 2 tiers. They're both size 12 by 20, but they are connected. This lot is considered a lot of record per Article 5.2A4, and the side yard was determined by 10% of the width of the lot, which came to 12 feet. And the request is a 10-foot side yard setback. Decks are not permitted to extend into the side yard setback. So history, the house was constructed in 1967 and purchased by the current owners in 2018. The current zoning is AA, but this area of the township was previously zoned A, single family. So not just this particular house, but there's an area in this whole Watch Hill area that has non-conforming lots and lots of record. So staff received a little bit of history. Staff received complaint in March of 2022 about a 6-foot high privacy fence that was installed in the front and side yards without permits. This came before the Board of Zoning Appeals, and a variance was granted in May of 2022 under conditions, and it was conditioned that it be brought into compliance with the board's decision by September, which it was. During our inspection regarding the fence, staff noticed that there was the deck that was constructed, and we also found during our research that no zoning certificate was issued for the deck. So multiple attempts were sent and letters were sent to the property owner to bring the property into compliance, and then ultimately the site plan was submitted in December, and notice of refusal was prepared on December the 29th. And now the application before you. This is the property in question. It sits at the corner of, I'm drawing a blank, Dunwoody and, I'm drawing a blank of what it is.
Bennett?
No, Bennett, yes, thank
Bennett,
you. The house faces Dunwoody. Their driveway comes in off of Bennett. The deck you can see in the aerial is this area right here, and the side yard is from the southern property line. Again, 10 feet versus 12 feet, which is required. The topography does slope to the south and east. This is the area, an aerial map. All of the surrounding zoning is AA, is all single-family residence. So this is a picture from Bennett looking at the front of the house. The deck does come off of this side, or encroaches into this side yard area behind the fence. This is the modified fence based off the board's variance. The deck looking from the side. I said that was Bennett, I believe that was Dunwoody. I'm getting my streets confused, so I apologize. So this is the area that is 10 feet versus 12 feet. This is the site plan that was submitted by the applicant. Side view, again, it's a two-tiered deck. And then aerial view. So variance findings for this case. Staff is of the opinion that the variance is not substantial. It encroaches 2 feet into the required setback of 12 feet. The house, as you could see from the aerial, sits at an angle. Let's go back to this particular. As you can see, the house sits at an angle, so the deck comes off of the back, and because of that, the angle of the house and the angle of the property line, that is one of the reasons that a variance was or is requested or is needed. And staff is of the opinion that is not substantial. Staff is of the opinion that the character of the neighborhood will not be altered. There is a 6-foot high privacy fence that was installed and approved by the board that somewhat hides the deck from the adjacent neighbor. Generally, that side yard setback requirement too is a building code issue, and there is adequate separation between these two houses. The property owner's predicament could be feasibly obviated if it was basically cut off at an angle, but it is a corner and it is that angle that's encroaching, not the entire deck. So staff is of the opinion that the spirit and intent of the zoning requirement would be met as well. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions?
None for me?
Would the appellant please come forward, state your name, address, and any additional information you'd like us to consider?
Hi, good evening. Matthew Stewart, 696 Dunwoody. I'm the homeowner of the property in question. Just asking for approval of the variance. I think it was fairly written up in the staff's history and opinion on it. We were slightly less as surprised to find out the lack of the zoning certificate on the deck as we were for the fence, and this came out of the fence issue. Someone was there doing their job and noticed it, and so yeah, we're trying to get everything right with you.
Was the deck built by you, or was it built before you bought it?
It was by us.
By you?
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, are you here for the Parks? The last one.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to forego asking if anybody wants to either in favor or opposition, since there's nobody here, unless you would like to step in. So unless there's any other questions, close.
Do you have any bees or?
Motion to close.
I'd like some, but now we're reconsidering.
Motion to close, we have a second.
There was one thing I neglected to say. If the board chooses to approve this, there was a suggested condition. Since it wasn't built with a zoning approval, it would not have received building approval either. So if the board chooses to approve this, a condition should be placed on there that a building permit is obtained.
Okay.
Now, okay, we're in session now, right?
Yes.
Okay, let me ask a question simply, because I've been in construction, it's commercial construction, you've been related to it. If in a situation like this, he comes in, he's got the deck built, are we gonna, so he'd come to you, issue a building permit that would go through Hamilton County, they'd come back out, and they'd have to do a formal inspection and come back in?
Yeah. I mean, we would issue a zoning certificate. If the board approves it, the next step is to apply for a building permit.
Okay, so he would have to have drawings then?
Correct.
Just like any other normal building permit? I'm just talking out loud, so.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I think there's probably a penalty for.
Well, I'm sure probably is it a double permit fee?
It's not from the township, no.
No.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a penalty from Hamilton County or not. We just want to make sure that the deck is built correctly and safely.
Okay, all right.
Right.
Well, yeah, okay. I have no issue with this, and I'm completely supportive of it with that condition.
Anybody have, any board feel in opposition? Can we get a motion?
Go ahead. Okay. Well, I'd like to motion that we approve it with the, being the staff's report as support for it, and the testimony. The condition would be that he goes through the permit process through the township and the county, and we give him 1 year to do that.
Second the motion.
So the condition is to obtain a building permit within 1 year?
Yeah.
I would like to.
You what?
So if the board approves this, this is it's already constructed, so I think a year is more than generous. It needs to be
we've always got a
applied
year
for, not necessarily.
Yeah, but I know it could take probably 2 to 3 months now in building department, so.
Well, I mean, just to apply for the building permit. We
Okay,
wanna make sure that the
okay, apply for the building permit. I'll amend my motion to apply for the building permit within 60 days. Is that good?
That seems reasonable.
Okay.
Concur.
So we have a motion to grant the variance with the condition of obtaining a building.
Applying for.
Of applying, thank you, of applying for a building permit within 60 days to Hamilton County. Is there any other discussion?
Through Anderson Township and Hamilton County. It goes through Anderson Township to Hamilton County, correct?
So we'll issue a zoning certificate
Yeah,
within 1 to
right.
2 days of the resolution.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And then Hamilton County will make sure that there's a zoning
Yeah,
resolution in place.
They wouldn't be surprised if they issue a double permit fee.
Well, who knows?
Yeah.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. Shekels.
Aye.
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin.
Aye.
Mr. Haber.
Aye. Go.
And I can't believe how many times, and you and I have been in the business, we've seen these cases come through. Well, the contractor told me he had a permit.
Live and learn.
All right, our last case, 12-2023 BZA, a variance request to allow an accessory structure to be located in the front yard area, and I would request that staff present their report.
And Ms. Reynolds is going to make this presentation.
Excellent.
Woohoo. So the applicant is Gabe Burks on behalf of Andrea Burks, the property owner. The location is 3725 Mount Carmel Road. It is zoned AA residence, which is single family. The request is for a variance to allow 36 by 40 foot structure, accessory structure garage to be located in the front yard area where accessory structures are not permitted in the front yard area. The history is that the house was constructed in 1947 and purchased by the current property owner in November of 2003. Additionally, a non-conforming detached garage is located on the property with the same setback as the proposed structure, likely to have been built with the house in 1947 prior to the adoption of zoning in 1948. In 2002, a zoning certificate was issued for an addition to the house, a covered and open deck with an overall size of 7 by 30 feet. In 2008, a zoning certificate was issued for a 4-foot high split rail fence that was 75% open. This is the property map. It shows the property, the house, with Mount Carmel to the east and neighbors on the north, east, and south sides. However, the neighbors are, as you can see, very spread out. This is an aerial of the house and the surrounding area. This is a topography map of the house. As you can see, it has a downward slope in the back and throughout most of the property. This is a bigger area map to really show that there are a few neighbors, but other than that, it's very heavily wooded and there's not really much else around. This is a photo of the house. As you can see, it has a light red and brownish brick color. This is a view of the side of the house looking towards the back of the property. You can see where those trees are. That is the crest of a hill, and then the rest of the property is sloped downwards. This is the proposed area for where the structure is going to be located. This is a view of the road where the shed or the accessory structure will be located. It is looking towards the road. As you can see, there is a bunch of dense foliage, making it difficult to see onto the property. This is another photo of the front of the property. There's a fence. That's where the road is behind that. As you can see, the foliage is pretty dense, so you can't see onto the property very well. This is the photo of the detached structure that is believed to be built with the house. This is a site plan for the accessory structure. It meets all of the setback requirements. This is a...
I'm sorry,
Does it?
just one
It doesn't.
clarification on this site plan. The front setback is shown to the property line, which is across the road. If the board considers approval, we would need a site plan that is to the right-of-way of Mount Carmel.
Oh, okay.
So just, sorry about that.
Your site plan wouldn't normally go to the property line, wouldn't it, for submittal?
It goes to the right-of-way for the front, and we did discuss this with the applicant, but we still didn't.
Okay, so he's good with it?
Yes,
Okay.
they're aware of it.
Okay.
This shows the dimensions of the proposed structure. This is the height dimensions of the structure. This is an elevation of the back side of the structure. The side of the structure facing away from Mount Carmel. Facing the road and elevation. And staff is of the opinion that the variance is not substantial. This 5-acre property allows a structure of 5,400 square feet. This is a 1,400 square foot structure. It is located in the front yard, and it is where it is located. It is located in an allowable distance from the setbacks. The rear yard area has a steep downhill drop, making the only feasible place to construct an accessory structure in the front yard area. The applicant's property is over 5 acres, and additionally, the surrounding lots are also large in size. There would be no neighbors in close proximity to the property to be affected by the structure. The essential character of the neighborhood would also not be altered, and adjoining properties would not suffer a substantial detriment. As a result, the adjacent properties will not be able to see the property or see the accessory structure due to the heavy foliage on all sides of the property. The variance would also not affect delivery of government services. The property owner's predicament may not be feasibly obviated through some other method other than a variance. The front yard area is the only place where an accessory structure is able to be placed. The topography of the rear yard is sloped downwards, therefore it would be cost prohibitive to build an accessory structure. Additionally, a non-conforming accessory structure exists on the opposite side of the front yard area. Staff is of the opinion that the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed by granting the variance. While the accessory structure is in the front yard area, the structure would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. The structure would also have limited visibility from the road due to the abundance of foliage located at the front of the property. The front yard area is the only feasible option for an accessory structure.
Questions to staff?
No.
None?
Excellent as always.
Thank you.
Mr. Burrs? Did I say that right? Burrs?
My name's Eric Patterson.
Thank you.
I'm with Morton Buildings. I'm just representing the family there on vacation.
Okay.
And as we've seen tonight, zoning is about how does it affect your neighbor? And you know, zoning rules are in place for a good reason. I'm a builder. I deal with them every day. The property to the north of him has just been donated to the township, I understand, and will be torn down. So no visible neighbor to the north. He owns the property to the south, and from his house, you cannot see the houses across the street. So this building affects no neighbor that will physically see it.
When you say north, is that, as I'm looking at the, is that to the right
Yeah,
side?
towards the 27th.
Yeah, I always get confused out there which way is north.
It's kind of awkward there, but
Okay.
when I go on Google's map, it looks north. So,
Okay.
yeah, but really, it affects, you know, no one will see it other than the Burks. I mean, you'll see it driving by in the winter when the foliage is, I mean, it's pretty desolate out there.
Thank you.
Sir, do you know what the use is? It seems like a rather substantial structure.
He is going to work on his antique vehicles, I think.
Okay.
Store his antique vehicles, is my understanding. A car garage.
Okay.
Could we get your address?
My
For the
personal
record,
address?
or your business address for the record?
325 North Denny Road, Wilmington, Ohio. That's my Morton office.
What was the street name?
Denny Road, D-E-N-N-Y Road.
Thank you.
So the property that is donated, is that going to green space then? Is that, do we know, Paul?
It has not been finalized. Right, it has not been finalized.
Okay. Just curious. Thank you.
So the relatives aren't going to be living in this shed?
No, no, not at all. I'm sure that happens, though.
Any other questions?
It doesn't have plumbing.
No, no plumbing.
Does it have electric?
Electric.
Well, that's all you need.
Anything else?
No?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
No need to take test unless there's,
Just curious to see the rest of the meeting.
Okay. He's had so much fun today.
so we will close our public testimony portion.
Motion to do so?
Motion, thank
Second.
you, second. Who would like to get us started?
I'm 100%.
100%?
In
You are
favor. In favor.
100%.
Yeah, I would tell you if it was a no.
In support?
Yep, 100% in support.
I am as well.
Likewise in support.
Support?
I'd like to make a motion
Please.
that we approve this isn't a variance, it's a,
Yes, variance.
it is a variance, isn't it? Yeah. Approve the variance with the condition that he provide a site plan showing the dimensions both from the property line and the right-of-way. Okay? Okay?
Do we
Con-
want to
construction
clarify,
start-
do we want to clarify that to be a platted survey?
Okay. What do you need? No, not for, no, he just.
We don't require one for
He doesn't
accessory
require it.
structures.
Okay.
It's just, we would
Yeah.
need the front yard setbacks drawn from the right of way and not
Good.
property line across the street.
The support will be the staff report and the statement that he submitted on March 17th of this year.
To be built.
Be built, started within 1 year, completed within 2.
Second the motion.
We got a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
Could you clarify number 2, please?
It's completed within 2 years.
I'm sorry, number 2, you said something about March 17th and I didn't get
Oh,
that-
drawings.
He provided document his document.
Okay.
Substantial conformance with the documents.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. Shekels.
Aye.
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin.
Aye.
Mr. Haber.
Aye. Okay,
All right.
we are having a brief recess.
What is the document I need to fill out? Is there a form I need to fill out?
Well, except
Journalize.
for journaling.
Don't you have to sign?
I don't have to sign.
Who's our signer?
The secretary and the chair.
Is Paul the secretary?
I'm not sure who's secretary. I used to be, but I'm not anymore.
You the vice chair.
No,
I'm the vice chair.
I'm
You're the
nothing.
vice chair?
I'm nothing.
What are you?
I'm just a regular guy.
He's
You're
the
a
fill-in.
hundred.
He's the fill-in.
I have no title.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
No bees or anything like that?
What's that?
No bees or chickens?
No.
They've got the acreage, they could do it.
Well, he is a veterinarian.
So, in the future.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Well, you might want to hold on to that.
I'm not, I'd use it as a paperweight or something. I am just concerned about what's going on out there.
I know, and why they haven't left.
Yeah.
It just irritated me that it was pointed out to us that we were breaking the law.
How do you know that?
That's what he said in his
No,
letter.
Do you-
I didn't
Yeah.
ask what somebody said. I asked, how do you know that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hey, do you-
That's-
Steve,
We're still recording.
yeah, we're still recording. Do you remember when the prior staff always had snacks and drinks for us here during this deliberation period?
Just because somebody said it. How do you know it's true? I don't, that's why, if that's what they said, and they believe that, then they have to prove it. Yeah, that's what my feeling is.
Right. I didn't have any feeling whatsoever about breaking in.
Yeah, no, I don't think we are either, but just accusation.
We ready? Gentlemen,
Yep.
case number 9.
As long as one of us does.
Guess whoever's signing.
Yeah, you're going to be signing it, Secretary. Interim Secretary.
Did Jeff miss the last one too?
I thought he was here.
No, he was here.
Somebody didn't read it. Does he read it?
I didn't read the minutes.
Yeah, I'm ready.
And we're good, yeah. And this is just all from the report.
Yep.
The plans dated March 8th. Okay.
With regards to 9-2023 BZA, make a motion that we approve and journalize.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Johnson.
Abstain.
Mr. Shekels.
Aye.
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin.
Aye.
No,
Mr. Haber.
You're abstaining.
I've got to abstain.
Abstain. Mr. Haber.
Aye.
Get too excited.
We have to do this all over again, John. If you-
Can I even sign it as secretary?
Probably should,
We could vote you interim.
Why not?
but he's conflicted, so he shouldn't sign.
Yeah, you can still sign it because it's what the board did.
That's true. Yeah, I guess we'll have to have Paul sign it then. Paul.
Like any Paul would do.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Motion?
With regard to 11-2023 BZA, make a motion that we approve and journalize.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. Shekels.
Aye.
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin.
Aye.
Mr. Haber.
Aye. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
With regards to 12-2023 BZA, I move that we approve and journalize.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. Shekels.
Aye.
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin. Mr. Haber.
Aye. One other item is that Jeff Nye is our secretary. Do we need to name?
Just appoint an acting secretary, so she cannot be John because he's.
I guess.
Well,
Cannot be.
No, he can't be because he was.
I say cannot, so maybe.
I can't do it on that
Paul.
one.
Sorry.
I'll do it. One of
Yeah.
us Pauls will do it. You
One of the
want-
Pauls.
I can stay if you can't.
Yeah, I can stay then.
You win.
So can we just have
Yeah.
the record state that Mr. Sign is a interim secretary for
Yes,
the evening?
yes, that'll be fine.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Done. Thank you, gentlemen.